Welcome back to Doer Fitness, everyone. Now, recently I got a great question from Instagram, and that was, how can I exercise while recovering from an injury? And that's the question we want to answer today on Doer Fitness. Let's jump right into it. There's three things that we want to keep in mind when we're talking about exercising while recovering from an injury, and that's the type of injury. Two, we want to know about our body's tissue healing process. We're going to learn about that. And then finally, we're going to look at some exercise strategies and objectives that we want to meet as we progress in our exercise to recover and come back from an injury. First of all, types of injuries. There's two categories. One is microtrauma, and this is what we normally think of as our overuse injuries. So tendinitis or shin splints, those are very common. This is when you are overtraining or you're training with bad form and gradually you cause yourself an injury. Category number two is macrotrauma. This is what we normally think of when we think of recovering from an injury. We have sprains, which are injuries to our ligaments. Around our joints we have these fibrous bands of connective tissue called ligaments, and they hold our joints together and prevent excessive movement. But say when you roll your ankle, you can damage those ligaments by excessively stretching them, by causing a partial tear or a complete tear. Strains is when we damage muscle tissue. So sprains are for ligaments, and then strains are for damage to muscle tissues. And it's important to know what tissues are healing when we are exercising. Now we want to learn about our body's tissue healing protocol. There's three stages to this. First of all, there's the inflammatory stage. So I sprained my ankle in 2020, and right away there's some pain, swelling, and redness, and this is something that's protective. It's something that's good. A lot of times you hear people say, put some ice on it. We think about the RICE protocol that we all learned, right? Rest, ice, compression, elevate. Actually, the doctor who coined that term back in the 70s actually has come back and said that that's not the best way to treat injuries. So he coined the term in 1978. However, in 2015, he backtracked on that hypothesis and said that ice may actually delay healing. This could be hurting instead of helping. Ice is a good therapeutic tool for, if it helps to control the pain, that's great. But we don't want to excessively try to limit swelling, because what's actually happening during this inflammatory response is there's a lot of debris cleanup that's going on so that we can start the tissue rebuild. We want the inflammatory response to happen. That should be about 2 to 3 days average. It shouldn't be more than about a week with most of these injuries. Number two, we have our fibroblastic repair. And this is where we have tissue breakdown and replacement with what you probably heard of as scar tissue, right? This is our collagen fibers coming to make a patchwork to fix the injured area. There's a lot of loss of strength after an injury because those fibers are just all randomly aligned. They're not parallel like they used to be so that there's good transfer of force. Now it's just this random network of just trying to duct tape the area basically. This stage of healing can take anywhere from 2 days to 2 months. But then we have our third stage, which is the maturation and remodeling phase. This is when that patchwork of collagen is now replaced with stronger type 1 collagen, and there's better alignment of those fibers. Now, it's not as strong as it used to be before the injury, but there is better alignment, and that means that there is better transfer of force, and we're starting to get back to normal functioning. This could go from 2 months to years after an injury. And now in 2022, there's still times where my ankle feels a little bit stiffer than my other ankle. And so this remodeling phase takes a while. Now that we know about types of injuries and how our body responds to injuries, now we can look at how should we exercise and train following an injury. So during the inflammatory response phase, that first week where we have the pain, the swelling, the redness, we're going to let that injured area rest so that we can start the healing process. However, what we can be doing is we can be training with other parts of our body. Let's say I have a lower body injury. I could do upper body exercises. And then what I might want to do is look at training areas around the injured area. So for example, if I did sprain my ankle, one thing I might want to do is start working on hip stability and knee stability. I might be able to work on different motions at the hip. So later as my ankle starts to heal, I have a good base of support to work with that ankle. So that's what we should be doing during this inflammatory response phase. Next, we get into the fibroblastic repair, where we're making that patchwork of collagen. That area is still compromised and it's weaker than it used to be. And so we want a slow, gradual progression. We don't want to move too fast. One tool that's really powerful for this stage of healing is isometric contraction. So activating muscle tissues without actually going through a full range of motion. So for example, one thing that I do all the time somehow is I mess up my thumb, I hyperextend it, or I jam it, right? And so let's say the swelling and the pain has gone down, and what I want to do now is I want to add some resistance. I'm going to push against that thumb joint. I'm holding that position and I'm pushing against it with some light resistance just to get that motor control back into the area. This could be done with your ankle. You point your toes down and have someone stabilize your ankle and push your toes up, point your toes up and try to push them down. Same thing. Isometric contractions are great here. Now we get into the maturation and remodeling phase. So let's go back to my sprained ankle, and I'm still having trouble with balancing, just standing on that leg. I'm not going to start to load up an exercise and do a single leg deadlift, right? Because I'm still haven't passed that objective. Now that I've worked on my balance, maybe now I get a small light medicine ball, I stand on one leg, and I do some halos, right? Working more on that neuromuscular control, that stability, and then from there I can start to work on range of motion. But we want to make sure that the joint is stable, and we want to make sure that we have that motor control back in that area, because that has been compromised through the injury. But we've gone through those time frames of what that looks like. Recovery takes a long time and it's not always fun. But I think the really cool thing about recovery is you get to see how your body adapts. God made our bodies to heal ourselves because He knew we were going to get hurt. Well, that's it for the video, guys. I hope that was helpful. Let me know your questions. Check out my Buy Me a Coffee page. Again, if you're new, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.